taxes, there's no excuse. You've been loosed.
This is From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Each week, Janice shares her wisdom to enlighten, educate, and advance the culture in America today. Janice Pons is a mother, author, and free thinker, and your host for our podcast this evening. Now let's join your host, Janice Pons.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Come on in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Janice Pons. I'm the host on this podcast. Our podcast, From Destruction to Dignity, Clinical Perspective, Spiritual Truths. Listen, we're going to keep going on our pathway that we've been on, understanding our nation, as represented by our flag behind me. I love that flag. Our 50 states in our great union, the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America, our presidential seal, where we are praying for the president of the nation, whomever it is. We're praying for our leadership. We're the Bible's from a spiritual perspective. We're to pray. We're to pray for our leadership. Even when they were jacked up, I was praying for them, and we've had a change too. So, speaking of which, we've got new leadership, and we're just moving forward. So we're going to continue to pray for our leaders of our nation, every branch of government, our fellow Americans who are coming out of those hard spots that they were in, the 265,900,000 working Americans who were living paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet. We're believing things are turning around, and they are. There are good things that are unfolding. And we've spoken loud and clear. We've moved forward with this mandate that was established for our great nation, and there's some beautiful things happen, and there's a lot at stake. So tonight we're going to examine something that's generated a lot of discussion in our nation: judicial overreach. And all this ties in with our clinical perspective, which is cutting ties. We're just talking about cutting ties. Now, that they work hand in hand, and we're going to see, because you know how we're going to frame some things. And so we're going to explore this together, my fellow Americans and my brothers and sisters. Remember, we're going somewhere, and it's expecting us when we get there. I invite you to come and go with me. Judicial overreach is a dynamic that is glaring us front and center in our nation. Now, let's look at a backdrop. There are so many who have tried to push the narrative that the Trump administration's dismantling of the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, would result in the deaths of multitudes of foreigners. They were like, it's humanitarian aid. If we don't do USAID, millions of people will die. That's what they were saying. Oh, let's explore that. People are not buying that anymore. However, you know what? For sure, it has turned out, you know why? It's turned out to be a money laundering operation. There was no oversight. For sure, billions of dollars were missing. They ended up missing. Fear mongering is now falling flat, as similar efforts by Bill Gates and other super wealthy individuals, apparently keen to keep American taxpayers running funds through their organizations and on the hook for wasteful foreign projects, failed. It failed to achieve their desired effect. Cash was instead pouring into big remote NGOs, non-governmental organizations. Working with local partners, it turns out, is more difficult, time-consuming, and it's riskier. But they had all that money. That was our money that was going to those NGOs. And can you imagine the salaries of the folk that they put in charge and those NGOs? They were paying their relatives good salaries, and they had their laptops, their phones, their credit cards, hotel suites. Baby, as my daddy said, they were living high off the hog. Our money. 83% of them have been shut down. Oh yeah, they have. USAID USAID funds were gobbled up by implementing partners such as private contractors, government agencies, NGOs, and international organizations. The Congressional Research Service has noticed something. It says, it has been discovered that less than, this is so important. Wow. I was like, okay, this is what they were doing. Less than 10% of our foreign assistance dollars flowing through USAID was actually reaching those communities. Less than 10%. Walter Kerr, co-founding executive director of Unlock Aid, something called Unlock Aid, has stated that about 98% of USAID grants pay for activities and not results. They don't get, we weren't getting results. Guys, a lot of it went towards LGBTQ specific agendas, helping them get operations, and that was the driving agenda with USAID. I've done previous podcasts naming exactly where those monies went, and that was a big driving force. The big words were, it's humanitarian aid. We've got to do this as a country. 43% of the activities failed to achieve about half of the intended results. That's what they've discovered through the analysis that were finally done. But in spite of that, they still got paid in full almost every time, and sometimes more. Mr. Kerr indicated that working with local partners could prove far more effective. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he ain't playing. He's not playing. He said that beyond creating a globe-spanning NGO industrial complex at the taxpayer's expense, coming out of our paycheck, USAID has little to show since the end of the Cold War. This is Marco Rubio. I like him. Development objectives have rarely been met. Instability has often worsened, and anti-American sentiments has only grown. This is Marco Rubio's summation. On the global stage, the countries that benefit the most from our generosity usually fail to reciprocate. It wasn't a reciprocal process. Marco Rubio, he has gone on to say that this era of government sanction inefficiency has officially come to an end. Thank God. Thank God. Under the Trump administration, we will finally have a foreign funding mission in America that prioritizes our national interests. To tie in with all of this, an appeals court delivered President Trump a big win, throwing out a Biden judge's ruling on foreign aid. Attorney General Bondi celebrated the win and promised to continue fighting back against judicial overreach. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia tossed out the February order of a Biden-appointed district judge on and delivered the Trump administration a big win. How it started? President Donald Trump ordered a pause in foreign aid on his first day back in office, eliciting backlash from beneficiaries abroad and vested interests at home. Trump he was convinced that the U.S. foreign aid industry and bureaucracy are not aligned with American interests, and in many cases were against our American values. He ordered a 90-day pause in foreign aid, according to his administration, an opportunity to review relevant programs. They said, he stopped the funding. Look, you got to figure out what's going on. And that's what he did. People were tripping out. He stopped the funding there. HBCU, he had to figure out what was going on. You got to figure out what's going out and what's coming in. That's good business sense. He ordered a 90-day pause in foreign aid, according to his administration, an opportunity to do what? Review relevant programs for programmatic efficiency and consistency with United States foreign policy. That's wisdom. That's strong leadership. We have to keep our national interests at the forefront. It was not at the forefront before. U.S. national interests are the core goals that guide the country's foreign policy, primarily focusing on security, homeland, allies, and citizens. That security, economic prosperity, such as trade, markets, and resources. Imagine somebody thinking about that. And the promotion of U.S. values like what? Democracy and human rights. Guys, we were on a sinking ship. Key interests also include ensuring regional stability, protecting critical infrastructure. You knew what was going on with the airlines. It was a mess. The leader related to the Department of Transportation, they said our airline system was equivalent to a flip phone. The big, beautiful bill is addressing that core safety issue. We didn't even have enough air traffic controllers. We were down 3,800. So it was totally asinine that 1,000 who were in the, I'm going to keep saying it, that were in the employment pool were taken out overnight because they were white. DEI, that diabolical agenda. Compromise our safety. Coming against white people. Are you kidding me? What a mess. What a mess. Good God. God have mercy. And he did. All these interests are the core goals that guide our foreign policy and focuses on our security, our posterity, our prosperity, and our posterity. Yeah. The promotion of values that promote our country. Human rights, democracy, key interests. Guys, if we don't have regional stability, if we don't protect our critical infrastructure, we're going to be a mess. All this deters major power conflicts, and it maintains a healthy global environment. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he subsequently suspended new funding obligations for the State Department. Yay! Praise God. He terminated thousands of grant awards. Yes. And he shuttered it up. The U.S. Agency for International Development, he shuttered it up. There were money laundering fronts, guys. That stuff is over. Oh, yeah. He shuttered it up. Grantees of foreign assistance funds promptly sued to get their hands on nearly $4 billion for global health programs and over $6 billion for AIDS programs that had been appropriated by Congress to be dispersed by the State Department. And USAID foreign-born U.S. District Judge Amir Ali helped them in February to keep the gravy train moving. Now, Ali, that judge, was a Biden appointee. That's what they've been trying to control everything from the benches. Issued a universal injunction, the kind that the U.S. Supreme Court determined on June 27th, likely exceed the equitable authority that Congress has given to federal courts. We're talking about judicial overreach. And we're talking about the ties that have been cut. Stick with me. They were trying to tie Trump up. It barred the Trump administration from suspending, pausing, or otherwise preventing the obligation or disbursement of appropriated foreign assistance funds in connection with any contracts, grants, and cooperative agreements, loans, and other federal foreign assistance awards that was in existence as of January 19, 2025. They wanted to lock that in. That's what Biden had put in place. And this judge was coming in Gestapo. This is what they've been doing. To keep it going. To keep these money laundering fronts going. A 3-judge panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia did what the Supreme Court refused to do in March. Vacate Ali's order, that judge's order. The majority on the panel, comprising of George H.W. Bush appointee and a Trump appointee, concluded that the district court abused. Just listen, when you're paying attention, guys, this is what they've been getting away with. But they determined, looking at the Constitution, the law of the land, the laws had been overlooked. Judges were running roughshod, just doing stuff. It concluded that the district court abused its discretion in granting a preliminary injunction because the grantees failed to show they are likely to succeed on the merits. The majority also determined that the grantees lacked a cause of action to bring their freestanding constitutional claim and have no cause of action to undergird their Administrative Procedure Act contrary to law claim. Here's the position of the Trump administration. This is what they said. We will continue to successfully protect core presidential authorities from judicial overreach. In her dissenting opinion, Judge Florence Pan, a Biden appointee and daughter of Taiwanese immigrants, she accused her colleagues of reframing the case to help the government. The majority concludes that the grantees lack a constitutional cause of action, and issue that the government did not mention in its opening brief and did not fully develop even in its reply brief, wrote Pan. Listen, we've got a new sheriff in town that operates according to the Constitution, not these judges, liberal judges that Biden and Obama appointed that were legislating from the bench. It's a different flow now. The Biden appointed judge wrote that the government instead argued that the grantees lack a statutory cause of action to force President Trump to obligate the funds in question. Attorney General Pam Bondi celebrated the victory, noting in a 2-1 ruling, the D.C. district lifted an injunction ordering President Trump to spend hard-earned taxpayer dollars on wasteful foreign aid projects. Guys, this is how they were getting over on us like a fat rat. They were set up to look like it was this aid, and it was this organization, and it was that, and there were money laundering schemes where bribery was going on. And guys, they had fat salaries while Americans were suffering, and it was all for foreign aid, and they were appointing people over those things, guys. It was a mess, and it's come to a stop. We will continue to successfully protect core presidential authorities from judicial overreach. This was stated by Lauren Bateman, an attorney with Public Citizen Litigation Group. They're going to fight back with their lawyers. They're going to fight back. Now, they're going to seek to further review the court, and they're gonna seek their lawsuits. Guys, you can't stand against the Constitution, I'm telling you. God, it was a mess. It was a mess. It was a mess. The vast majority of foreign assistance was abused, guys. That's what this whole situation has become. The audacity of foreign aid programs that believe that they can demand our taxpayer dollars that came from my check and your check for their citizens. That's mind-blowing. But that's what was going on. Since when did they start thinking that we have to do what they want? Stop the mess and stop giving money away. That's what's happened. That's what's happened. My fellow Americans and my brothers and sisters, foreign assistance should not include money for, you ready? Ukrainian models to attend fashion shows, money to one nation to the tune of $10 million for circumcisions, hundreds of millions of dollars to terrorist groups, money for a transgender comic book for people in South America, or transgender ideology being pushed in Central America and parts of Africa. That's what our money was going for. What does any of that have to do with any kind of assistance such as food and medicine? That we don't mind helping with food and medicine, but this is what it was paying for, guys. Those aforementioned descriptions that I just gave to poor nations, or farm tools to those that want to learn to grow crops, or money to help new mothers with premature babies. Those things at times I could see us helping with, but that's not what it was going for. No, it wasn't. Listen, guys, this thing got bizarre. Some very bizarre and other downright treasonous things that the Democrats were doing or paying to have done have been stopped in their tracks. Democrat leadership has become pure evil. They were nefarious, they were lying, they were shysters, and they've been found out. And they, like Maxine Waters said, we don't know what they have on us. We found out, Maxine. The gravy train's over, guys. The United States is trillions of dollars in debt, and we're on the verge of bankruptcy. We cannot and will not continue to spend money like there was no tomorrow for someone else's benefit, especially when that benefit ill-defined or corrupt or was just corrupt in nature. All of this leads to our clinical perspectives tonight. Yeah, cutting ties. Cutting ties. We were being financially abused, guys, so many ways. So many ways. Cutting ties with financial abuse, that involves recognizing the abuse and seeking support and building financial independence. That's what President Trump is trying to build, and to build our pockets. No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security. Well, and not one Democrat voted for it. They didn't want us having more money. Let me keep going. This can be a complex and risky process about that financial abuse, but it was rampant. So it's crucial to have a safety plan and access to resources like legal advice and support from, like if you're dealing with domestic violence. We're talking about kind of on a personal level, but these are the types of abuses that were going on, and they can go on in organizations, and it was going on in our nation. Now, let's look at a breakdown of, it's a way of thinking, steps to think about for consideration about abuse when you're cutting the ties. And sometimes you need to be in structured settings like the therapeutic process to help you navigate this stuff. You go to JanicePons.com, go to the resource page. It'll show you how to get a therapist. I've already mapped it out for you. In your region, it shows you how to do it. It's beautiful. If you need support, if you need recovery support, go to a support group. Al-Anon, it's Celebrate Recovery. So many options, guys. You don't have to go it alone. But let's look at these steps real quick before we wrap this up. To consider, when you're talking about breaking ties, recognize and acknowledge the abuse. Identify the tactics. Financial abuse involves controlling someone's access to money, sabotaging their employment, or running up debts in their name. Understand it's not your fault. What they were doing was not our fault, but they were in a position to take advantage of us until President Trump showed up. I called it last week the Trump effect. It's a Trump effect. That stuff is stopped. Financial abuse is a form of coercive control, not a personal failing. And you do need professional help sometimes. Talking to a therapist or counselor specializing in when domestic violence is going on, specializing in that can help you understand the situation and its impact. What would happen if we build a safety plan and seek support, guys? When these types of dynamics go on, people need help. They need support. They've got to have a safety plan, especially when they're cutting ties. You don't just up and go. You help people that know how to navigate these pathways to help you. Help people. What would happen if we prioritize safety? If someone's in immediate danger, contacting services, 911 in the United States can get you to the connections and the networks that can be helpful. Oh yeah, we're talking about abuses that go on. What would happen if we're talking about breaking ties? We broke the ties nationally and internationally that were harmful. These are more intricate personal ways to look at it in terms of dynamics. But it affects a nation, it affects an organization, it affects families, and it affects individuals. What would happen if we create a safe space? Identifying trusted friends or family members at home, or sometimes people need a domestic violence shelter if they've been dealing with abusive people as a temporary safe haven. It saved lives. It's getting other people involved. It's okay to let people, you have boundaries, but sometimes people need to know what you're dealing with. What would happen if you need to gather essential documents? I've seen people say, I don't know, well, what's this number? What's that? I don't know. Identifications, bank statements, property records. Is it okay for you to have screenshots of that with your cell phone? Is it? Is that wisdom? What about securing your finances? What would that look like? What would happen if someone sometimes had, is there a need? Just thinking out loud. Some people say, you know what, I might need a bank account. It's thinking things through. This is why counsel is important. You need support systems. Some people need support systems to navigate that. Changing the way things are set up for protection, guys. They were not protecting us. They were abusing us. And on a personal level, there are resource systems to help people navigate these things when we're talking about overreach and cutting ties. Sometimes you need legal advice. Do you think the Trump administration has gotten legal advice? Do you think sometimes people individually go through things where they need legal advice? What would happen if they consult with legal aid or a lawyer specializing in family law or domestic violence to understand rights and options, guys? Domestic violence services are set up. It has saved lives. They are trained with specificity to help in these situations. There are resources, organizations, hotlines, local shelters to provide support and guidance. What about rebuilding financial independence, developing a budget? That's a foreign. That's foreign to some people. Creating a realistic budget that accounts for your living costs, vocational training, financial assistance. Guys, there's just help. People don't realize there's help out there. When these homeless people come off this, there's so many resources for them. It really is. It really is. Seeking support to rebuild. It's there. Important considerations are to talk it out, including dates, times, specific incidents of things that happen. I always talk about keeping a log, guys. This stuff is so important. People are not buying anymore. This judicial overreach that they were doing, it's been exposed. It's been exposed. That's what we looked at tonight, judicial overreach and cutting ties. And then it has applications. The principles thereof have applications even to personal lives, guys. We don't have to take this mess anymore. People are not buying it anymore. For sure, it has turned out to be that these money laundering operations, they have been stopped. Listen, guys, we're going to keep talking about these issues. We're going somewhere. It's expecting us when we get there. And part of it is just understanding what's happened. Wisdom is the principal thing. That's the spiritual principle. Therefore, get wisdom, but in all that getting, get understanding. And I have people, they say, thank you so much for us just talking about this, because it helps us to understand. We know how to support one another. Guys, I don't give 2 cents about a political party if they're not supporting us as Americans. I want us to thrive, and I want our children to thrive. We are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to keep talking about these things. We're going to keep praying for each other, supporting each other. Guys, I appreciate you. I love you. I thank you. I honor you. We're going to keep coming in here. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for downloading the podcast. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for supporting me, praying for me. I pray for you. You pray for me. We're going to keep going on this journey. God bless you. I will see you next week. Good night.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Janice's mission is to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point people towards intervention when needed. As a reminder, this show is not therapy, but for educational purposes only. For more information, check out JanicePons.com or follow her on social media.
We are one power, strength is ours, liberty, been set free, education, affirmation, dedication, information, revelation.